are very delightful.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Um,
Lindsay, and what's her?
Lindsay and Tom.
Yeah.
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 And then their little guy is Jack.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then they have Luna. So we my son, Don and Jack are buds. So that's who we share a babysitter with.
Okay, got
So,
it. Got it.
Yeah. So we there this week. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll probably look a lot like that for like the next 2 years.
Yeah.
But there's such a big part of me that wants to just like get a shovel and just start digging a foundation now. Like it's so exciting.
It's incredible. Your view is going to be amazing. It's such a great location too, right? Like it's like in a good, like it's off a busy road, but then also like easy to get downtown. And
Yeah.
then for resale, it's close to an elementary and it's close to Sorosis. I mean, it's like such a great location.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming you're waiting for material costs to come down a little bit.
That's actually a little bit of an afterthought. We live like a pretty compact lifestyle. It's just me and Maggie. We don't have kids. We have 2 cats. And
They need room.
yeah, they just right. And they're little, hey, Mark. We have our house is 780 square feet.
Okay.
And like we
Perfect.
bought that in 2016.
Yeah.
We just remodeled it in 2020.
Nice.
And it's kind of like just getting all cushed out and buffed out to like what exactly we want.
Right.
And it's just like, why are we leaving this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we kind
Totally.
of want to just like let it last a little bit longer.
Yep.
But every time I go stand on that lot, I'm just like, I just want this right now.
No, our little house is, when we bought it, it had been sitting on the market forever.
Mhm.
And it was like, and everyone's like, well, it's just super small. I'm like, you do know we were in a 2-bedroom condo
Mhm.
for like, in a 1-bedroom before this, like, this is massive to
Yeah.
us, right?
It's like 1,200 square
it's-
feet. You're like,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was like, yeah, and it was like for praise for a long time. So it just sat and so we came in. But yeah, it's like it
Nice.
cracks me up here in the Dallas when people are like, oh, it's just so small. And I'm like,
What do you need?
yeah, I mean, like, and the best part about it is we have like a real lot to it. So it's like we have a full backyard and like,
Nice.
so like that's worth everything, but it just cracks me up a lot when people are like, oh yeah, that's just like too small of a house.
Yeah, you're Hey,
That's less for me to clean. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
yeah, it takes me 45 minutes.
About 1,200.
Oh, wow. that's
Yeah.
kind of big.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, I got that beat 780. Tiny house. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome.
I accumulated so much less stuff,
Yeah.
right? When I lived we had this amazing apartment in San Francisco and it was like basically, it was kind of a 1-bedroom, but it's basically they converted the dining room into a bedroom. And then we had 2 huge walk-in closets. So one was my office and then one was our closet.
Mhm.
We had just like the perfect amount of stuff, like not
Yeah.
too much, not too little. You always had to think twice before buying anything.
Yep.
I was like such a good consumer back then. Now I'm like the dollar store, just load it up, whatever crap can come in my house.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Especially if you have an attic and a basement to put stuff in.
Oh yeah, the bigger houses definitely yield an accumulation of things. Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And this is like a different subject, but a lot of times, you find these older folks, their kids have moved out, they're grandparents now, and they have all this stuff and their kids don't want them.
Yeah.
And don't want any of it.
Right.
But this is like
the
their
grandparents,
life.
yeah.
And I'm just like,
I'll
If
get
you
you a
don't-
dumpster.
yeah, I'm like, if you don't plan on taking this with you to wherever you're going next, like off it goes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
At some point, a new lot is. at
Yeah.
some-
Yeah.
not yet.
I would stand on that lot before we bought it. It was on the market for like over a year. And I would just stand there and just drink for like 20 minutes. Just like the weird guy, just standing there being like, am I gonna do this? And then finally. we finally did.
It's an idea. That would be so fun.
Oh, even when we did our little remodel. When you start getting down to the point where you're like deciding what door pulls to
Yeah.
put, you're just like, dude, just put them on. Like, I'm so into this right now.
This is my best.
You just want the project done.
Yeah, like and ours is quick. It only took like 3.5 months. Like it was like a full like gut out. But we knocked it out. It's great. But yeah, by the end of it, and you're talking about paint color and like the 8 different whites.
Or the grout color.
Yeah,
Do
the
you
grout.
want light gray, dark gray, or just off white?
Yeah.
This is like my best friend is.
Uh,
We did our backwards.
You got
What I want, just decide.
Yeah, and then
Do it
just
all
send me
for
an
me.
invoice and we're all
Yes.
good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, and if you could take over project management, I'd be even happier, but I'll just make my husband.
Josh, do we need? I don't have a script for this, right? No
Just
need.
gonna go grab one.
Oh, okay.
And it's legislative, so it's a bit different than, a spiel, talking about comments.
Yeah.
Like that. She's gonna grab something.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
There's 4 of us, so yeah, we have a quorum, so that's good.
Yeah,
John's on.
just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Try to, real quick.
Perfect.
We've all heard this
I went to the bathroom beforehand this time, so I won't be dying at the end.
Last time, last meeting, I was struggling there. Yeah, I'm like, I feel so bad. Do you think that's appropriate to do? Like, we're getting into it, be like, hey, can we just take 5 minutes, take a bathroom
Oh,
break?
yeah, it happens all the time.
Really?
Yeah, all the
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
And
do
they
that
have,
next
like,
time.
city council has a cut, they have a hard cutoff, like 8:30.
Really?
They have to basically vote to take it any further than 8:30.
Interesting.
Can we do that?
I mean, sure, you can probably work the bylaws. I mean, verbally, we don't have to go 3 hours.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Probably should have cut this dude off last time I kept talking. Just because, I mean, it seemed a little, he had good points there. It just seemed a little out of line. Because then it turned into this kind of banter back and forth.
Yeah.
Nice side. Do it different side.
Okay. Cool. We're gonna wait for Paul to get back, right?
Yeah, she's gonna grab a script or something.
Okay. Right.
Expecting at least some comments from the public. But
Really?
nothing, in Alan, he's like, just been a comment a while ago. Just been, how we get the word out there.
I think this is a little bit. There's no like attention grabbing headline here. You know what I mean? Like there's no,
It's not simple. I mean, it's taken me a long time to wrap my head around this.
there's that too, yeah.
And I think that how do you describe this to someone about how or why it long-term may impact their property value? That would be,
Yeah, and you know, so we have this ballot measure requirement I talked about before, that's really a state requirement, basically says, if you're gonna impact the property, if the code change is going to impact a property negatively or have an impact, you have to do this ballot measure 6. I think with us allowing more flexibility in this thing opens it up.
I agree with that.
Put it in there on my slide, you've got it, and I'll take the final look at it. Dissect it a little more, make sure that I don't think it does. I mean, because this is basically making it friendly for the developer, friendly for the property.
Mhm.
You know, that mom and pop just want to do one house, compared to the guy who wants to build an apartment complex.
Yep.
So. Yeah, this has just been. You guys have been, you know, privy to. It's been something that's been on mine and Caitlin's radar for a very long time.
Yeah, you're knocking this out. This is really great.
Yeah,
This will all
thank
be
you.
done.
So. It's confusing, but it's written in a way that the confusion is something that we only have to deal with as staff, basically. The idea is that this just allows like simple and flexibility. So just come in. Make it pretty easy for them to want to do it. Thank you all for your patience here.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Are you guys staying in town for Thanksgiving? Where are you going?
Legoland.
Really?
We're heading there on Saturday. So
Ain't gonna be down there all week?
good chunk of it. Yeah, we didn't do a vacation over summer. So
Nice,
we did it in January, so we're doing it again, but bringing a little with us. So.
nice. Do you still have family in California?
No, we were down there still. So all our family is working.
Oh, got it. Okay,
So everybody's here or out in Oregon. So,
okay.
we'll do Christmas with them.
Groovy.
Yeah, how about you guys?
Legoland. Yeah, we'll be here. We're gonna go over to we're gonna go see grandma Thanksgiving morning. Bring her some stuff, have like breakfast brunch thing, hang out with her, and then we're going over to our buddy Booth and Britta's house.
Nice.
And I think it's just gonna be like 5 of us. But that's great. And they're super fun. And they're very good gamers, like game night, board game stuff. And we have a lot of fun with all the different games that we play. It's very challenging to find. I don't play like a lot of board games and things like that, or card games or whatever, but it's very challenging to find people that are patient enough to learn the new game, especially when there's drinks involved.
And adults, right?
And adults, yeah, and it's just like, yeah, just trying to like keep everyone roped in, you know, can't have too many talkers, gotta listen well, gotta stick with it. And they do, so that's great. Yeah. Do you play a lot of games too? You don't? Oh, dude.
If I want every holiday season,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just the two of us. We have to get those that are
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can only play cribbage for so long.
yeah.
I mean, I only can because my Maggie just wants my ass, like. regularly.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't get it. It is against all odds that Maggie continues to win at cribbage. It's like,
Maybe she's just better at it than you are.
yeah, but I mean, the card she gets is not even. I mean, she just gets better cards all the time. It's
Who's dealing?
ridiculous. Well, in cribbage,
Yeah.
you share, but like, I bet my win rate on that is like 1 to 99. I kid you not. It is just a savage beating every time. But that's okay.
Get up and try it again.
Yeah, exactly. We usually try to play best 2 out of 3 and we play 2 games and That's that. Yeah, that's a good one for sure. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And then fire property the day after, Friday, will be hot apple cider, toddies, snacks, etc.
I'll be going down to California to my sister's place and we'll go spend Thanksgiving with some old family friends down in Monterey.
Nice. I love that part of California.
Yeah, it is pretty.
You guys are both going to sunny You guys are both going to sunny California, man. Me and Josh are gonna be stuck up here in the drizzle.
Yeah.
I'm going to Cali too.
Whoa, Paul, you and I are going to California.
So basically this meeting tonight, it's two applications. But it's really all combined into one. A lot of times when you have a zoning amendment, you have a comp plan amendment at the same time. So
Okay.
this is basically the language you read for this one. I don't know if you can mend the both of them.
This is what I read for this. I'm just gonna do this all at the same time. Or
Yeah, that
are we?
works. Yeah, it's like, we're basically looking at it all as one. It's two applications combined into one, really is what it is. Just our code has them spelled out differently. One of them, you're making a change to the zoning ordinance, the other, you're making the zoning a change.
Got it. Okay. Okay. There's no one here. We do have a quorum, yes. Okay, we ready? Okay, Planning Commission, City of the Dalles meeting, November 17th, 2022, 5:30 PM. I call this meeting to order. Paulo, may we please have the roll call?
Riley Aparicio,
Present.
Cody Cornett,
Here.
John Grant,
Here.
Philip Mosher is absent, Maria Pena is absent, Mark Popoff,
Here.
Nick Portella is
Excellent, thank you. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next is the approval of the agenda. If everyone has had a chance to read over the agenda, may I please have a motion to approve and a second?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
Excellent. That has been approved and seconded. All in favor of approving the agenda, raise your right hand, say aye.
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 All right, agenda approved. Now is the time for public comment. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject that does not later appear on the agenda. 5 minutes per person will be allowed. And we have no publics here, so continuing on. Next is the legislative public hearing. Please bear with me while I read a series of things. Now is the time specified for the Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider the following matter. Consideration of CPA 54-22, the approval of proposed changes to the Dalles Comprehensive Plan. The amendment and purpose is to revise the Comprehensive Plan Goal 10 housing policies by adjusting the existing prescribed density changes of the comprehensive plan consistent with residential zoning development standards of the Dalles Municipal Code and ZOA 107-22, City of the Dalles. The substantive criteria for CPA 54-22 upon which the Planning Commission will base its decision in this matter are contained in the Dalles Municipal Code, Title 10, Land Use and Development, Chapter 10.3, Application Reviewing Procedures, the Dalles Comprehensive Plan Goals 1, 2, and 10, Oregon Statewide Planning Goals 1, 2, and 10, Oregon Administrative Rules 660-009, Oregon Revised Statutes 27.186. Along with that, consideration of ZOA 107-22, approval of proposed changes to the Dallas Municipal Code Title 10 Land Use and Development. The amendment is intended to create clear and objective standards concerning residential density, including defining common density terms, calculating and rounding density figures, regulating density and requirements for redeveloping land below prescribed density ranges. The substance criteria for ZOA, which is zoning ordinance amendment, should have clarified that earlier, 107-22, upon which the planning commission will base its decision in this matter are contained in the Dallas Municipal Code Title 10 Land Use and Development, Chapter 10.3 Application Review Procedures, the Dallas Comprehensive Plan Goals 1, 2, and 10, Oregon Statewide Planning Goals 1, 2, and 10, and Oregon Administrative Rules 660-009, Oregon Revised Statutes 227.186. The public hearing is required by law and certain rules apply. First and foremost, you must be recognized by the chair in order to speak and present testimony. When recognized by the chair, please proceed to the microphone and state your name and mailing address for the record. The hearing is required by law to be recorded. Generally, the public hearing procedure is as follows. Prior to the public hearing, a determination will be made of the qualifications of the commission members and allow for challenges from the audience. I will open the public hearing with the staff report. The purpose of the staff report at this point is to further identify the applicable criteria for the case being considered and to provide background information about that case. After the staff report, we will hear testimony from the applicant. Next, there will be testimony from proponents, those in favor of the application. Following, there will be testimony from the opponents, those not in favor of the application. Next, there will be testimony from anyone else who wishes to offer testimony or ask questions. Then, to honor the right of rebuttal, we will again hear from those in favor of the application. To expedite the hearing, the commission members may ask questions of persons as they testify. When this process has been concluded, we will close the public testimony portion of the hearing. During the hearing, some important standards apply. First, those who testify must hold their testimony to the decision criteria. As in all land use hearings, there are a complete set of rules, procedures, and criteria we must follow. Second, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the commission members and the parties an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Third, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with detail specific enough to allow the city to respond to the issue precludes any action for damages in the circuit court. Fourth, prior to the conclusion of the public hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. If such a request is made, the law states the commission must grant the request by either continuing the hearing to a time and date at least 7 days from the date of the initial hearing, or the record must be kept open for a period of at least 7 days. These are the rules. Are there any questions? Have any members of the commission had any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, or bias which would prevent you from rendering an impartial decision on this matter?
No.
Commissioner Papa says no. Carly Aparicio says no. Cody Cornett
No.
says no. John Grant says no. Does anyone in the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of any members of the commission? And there's no audience. The public hearing is now open. May we please have the staff report?
Good evening, commissioners. Joshua Chandler, Community Development Department. So the item we are discussing this evening is the consideration for the adoption of zoning ordinance amendment 107-22 and comprehensive plan amendment 54-22. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Apologies on that. All right, so starting out, giving a little bit of history of density in the city of the Dalles. In 1980, the Dalles zoning ordinance number 80-986 was adopted. There was a few amendments that occurred until 1993, and this was in effect until 1998 when it was basically once the land use development ordinance was established. This zoning ordinance established minimum lot sizes in the city as well as a maximum density for different residential zones. In 1994, the Dallas Comprehensive Plan was adopted, and this established minimum and maximum density ranges that we have today. These were both two standalone documents. And then in the early 90s, there was a community engagement program process to create a development ordinance that was in line with the goals of the comprehensive plan. That is what we have today. Title 10, the Land Use Development Ordinance. This is our zoning code. It's also referred to as the LUDO. I'll probably refer to it as the LUDO throughout our presentation this evening. That when it was adopted, it amended the zoning ordinance lot sizes that were previously established. It codified the comprehensive plan density ranges, which means it took the comprehensive plan density ranges and put them into the municipal code in the purpose statement of each residential zone. And then in 2011, there was a change, an amendment to the LUDO, and that was the addition of something called minimum density. This is different from the minimum maximum density range. And then through the years, there have been various little zone, changes to the amendments, and minimum lot sizes were amended in 2019 and 2021. I think there's some members here that were part of the adoption, and this was in response to HB 2001, and this was for the middle housing code. And really what, throughout the years, what has happened is you have a comprehensive plan density ranges that they don't line up with the Dallas Municipal Code's lot sizes. And I'll get more into that. So over the years, there's been some, discrepancy in it, which has with minimum density, with density ranges, with lot sizes, which is kind of put the discretion on the authority, the approving body. It really came to a head in early 2022, where the Community Development Department denied an application for a minor partition. This minor partition was taking one parcel of land, dividing it into three. That proposal was denied because it exceeded the maximum density in that zone, although each of the lots being proposed met the minimum lot size. That was then appealed in February 2022. The Planning Commission ultimately denied the appeal request. But at that meeting, the Planning Commission directed staff to review the Dallas Municipal Code pertaining to density, looking for clear and objective standards so these types of scenarios don't happen again. July 7th, 2022, we had our first discussion on density. August 11th, at the direction of the Planning Commission, staff distributed proposed amendments to local contractors, surveyors, and engineers requesting some comment and input in the process. One comment has been received to date. October 6th was our second planning commission discussion on density. And then this evening, November 17th, is when we're discussing the actual adoption of these amendments. So looking at an overview of these density code amendments, these amendments will establish a new article altogether in the code pertaining to density, very robust code talking about density, although we've mentioned density throughout our code for so many years. This is really something that really dissects density and really gets into it. It's also, we're proposing to restructure multiple existing code articles. So for instance, there are some, although we're touching on density, some of the changes that we found in this process will also impact other sections of our code. For instance, we are proposing to beef up our rounding requirements, but those rounding requirements will will also work in all types of applications, even when you're talking, for instance, rounding of parking, for instance, parking requirements for an upcoming development. So the goal of this is creating some flexibility within multiple development scenarios with clear and objective standards. So looking at some of the main points of these amendments, there is some changes to definitions, additions of definitions into the code pertaining to density. There is we would be adjusting minimum and maximum density ranges of the comprehensive plan, also removing this standalone minimum density that was added in 2011. As I mentioned, there is a section talking about rounding and truncation of calculations. There's calculating section talking about calculating density, regulating density, a section pertaining to redevelopment plans. I will get more into those here in a little bit. But then also the, reiterating minimum lot allowances, meaning looking at a lot in the sense that one lot equals one dwelling. So when you're looking at how to create density in a land division, you would be looking at how many lots you can create, whereas in an apartment, you would be looking at how many dwellings you can add. And really, this kind of just explains that they're really one and the same with, the expected minimum density of one lot is to be an assumed one dwelling unit. So first section of these main points to look at, this is adjusting density ranges. Currently, density ranges and lot sizes are not evenly dividable into each other. As you can see underlined here, there's density ranges, and then the italics, those are the minimum lot sizes of each zone. We're just looking at them on the surface, probably, just a bunch of numbers, but the closer we look at it, the example we have is a 15,000 square foot lot divided into the minimum lot size of 5,000 would equal 3. But if you take that same size lot, a 0.34 acre lot, which is 15,000 square feet, and you multiply it by 6, which is your maximum density, you actually get 2 dwellings per lot. So ultimately, that shows right there that these two do not align. This is a closer look at an option that we discussed in October at our last discussion meeting on this. Staff had 2 options presented to, get the minimum lot size and density ranges aligned with each other. The commission proposed to move forward with this, what we have in front of us, which is taking the density range and aligning it with the minimum lot size. So you would take an acre of land and multiply it by the minimum lot size, and you come up with these decimal point numbers, but that is the exact figure that you would get when you're looking at, for the instance, low density. The figure here comes to 8.712 compared to the maximum density of what it currently reads is 6. So staff's proposal is adjusting that maximum density range to align with the minimum lot size. Therefore, when a developer or a person come in, they rely on the minimum lot size alone, instead of having this confusing situation where they are meeting the minimum lot size requirements, but then when you calculate everything together, you actually find out that you do not meet the density range. It can be rather confusing, and in the case of that appeal, it results in the denial of an application. So there was also a density. We'll get into another aspect of rounding, but there is an extra provision that was added, and this is for density calculations for density specific. So any rounded whole number, which results in total number of dwelling units that exceeds the maximum density range, shall be permitted no more than 1 dwelling unit greater than this range. So for example, in a low density zone development that has a maximum density, let's say 8.65, it may be rounded up to 9. Therefore, it would exceed that 8.712
But that's the provision that staff is proposing here to basically allow that individual to follow the newly proposed rounding provisions they were putting in place, but it will result in exceeding that density range. So in looking at a new section of rounding that is created, currently our code does not talk about the truncation. This is decimal points. How far back on a decimal point are you going to go? Our code doesn't call anything out to the 100th place or 10th place or anything like that. Currently, minimum requirements are always rounded up and maximum allowed requirements are rounded down. So for instance, the numbers I have in front of you, these were numbers that were expressed at that February 2022 meeting. This individual had 11 point, they were looking to install parking spaces. And the calculation came out that they needed 11.053 parking spaces per our code. They had to round up an entire space. So they were required then to provide 12 parking spaces. Where then you look at the one on the bottom here for the maximum allowed. This was the discussion that we were having about the partition that was appealed. This individual had 0.48 acres. Multiply it by the maximum density of the zone. It came out to 2.88, almost to 3, but we had to round it down per current code requirements. So what we were proposing is an actual provision on truncation. So 2 numbers past the decimal point. So if you have 3.4289, it would be moved to the 100th place. Therefore, the calculation would be 3.42. And then when it comes to rounding, we would round at 0.5, just like we learned when we were kids, basically at 0.5. 0.49, you would round down to 2, 0.5, you would round up. So in both of these scenarios above that we discussed back in February, obviously you would be looking at those 11 parking spaces, and this individual would have been able to round up to have the 3 units that they had originally proposed.
I got a question on the rounding.
Let me finish the presentation real quick and then we'll get right back to it. So the next couple slides talk about calculating density, and we wanted to be very clear to add in something called density denominator. This is another thing that came up during that appeal. It was the question of how we are calculating density. What are we basing it off of? So this is, to be clear, the density denominator is based on the individual development site. So you take a look at whatever's being proposed, the area that's being proposed for development, that is the area that you use in your calculation. You don't base it off of density of the existing subdivision it's in, or the neighborhood, or the tract of land. It's specific to the individual development site. There's also some language added in here on how to calculate net area. I will get into gross and net in a few on the next slide. This is listing off the different constraints that are used when you're calculating net area. So net area is taking the gross acre or gross area of land, and you're removing all of these constraints from the property, because this is basically recognizing that these constraints up on the screen are quote unquote not developable. We all know that that's not entirely the case, but this does, for instance, when you're looking at a stream corridor or a wetland, those are restricted or extremely difficult to develop in. So those would be removed from your overall area of land. So looking at gross density, it should say gross and net density up there, but gross density is the number of residential dwelling units per overall acre. And then net density is taking that overall acre and subtracting all those constraints that we just discussed on the previous slide. So moving forward with calculations, staff is proposing that net density is used whenever there's a figure asking for a minimum required amount, and a gross density that allows when the provision is for a maximum allowed requirement. And I'll show those both here with some images. So This would show the proposed code amendment is when you're determining minimum required density, net density is used for calculations. So that is the blue area there. The back side of it, or the top of it, if you will, that is area that's sloped land. It would be considered, it would be a bit more difficult to develop on. So the minimum required, or this net density, is looking at only the buildable area to be considered, removing all constrained land. And that allows for an individual to minimize the amount of development that they actually want to put on the property. Whereas looking at gross density, when you're determining a maximum allowed or how much you can build on a property, gross density is used. So an individual would be able to use those constrained lands into their calculation. And this allows an ability to maximize density. So for an individual to look at this lot here, that slope may cut out half of what they were able to build if this had been a flat lot. So this would give a developer, property owner, an opportunity. Let's say this is 4 units could be built on here. They could move all those 4 units to the front of the property and still maximizing their density and not having those constrained lands taken away from their overall calculation. So for regulating density, we added some language in here regarding duplexes and ADUs. When you're calculating or considering minimum density, duplexes are considered 2 dwelling units. An ADU is 1 dwelling unit. When you're looking at maximum density, a duplex is 1 dwelling unit, and an ADU would be 0 dwelling units. The reason that's important is, kind of going back to minimizing and maximizing your land. And for an individual, let's say, that has a maximum density of 3 and they have 3 units, this would still give them the opportunity to build an ADU. So it still gives an opportunity to provide needed housing while not going against their maximum density requirement. Some more on regulating densities. Next couple slides will be just a line in here. No proposed development may exceed the maximum it just says say the maximum density of the underlying zone. And then in the RL, RH, and RM, all of our 3 residential zones, all development, when a redevelopment plan is required for all proposed developments that do not meet minimum density. So we talked about multiple development scenarios as, talking about minimizing and maximizing. There is the developer or the property owner that wants to build less. And then there is the developer or property owner that wants to build the most that they can. So what this does, this is catering to the individual that wants to build less. If they buy or they inherit a large portion of land, they want to build maybe just 1 single family home on it, but the density says that they're required to provide 6. Well, this redevelopment plan would get them the opportunity to build that one, but be able to establish a plan that 5 additional units could be added in the future. So therefore, the city is checking the box on density, making sure that density could be met, but not requiring that individual to do it right away. The reason we felt that this was important is we've actually, this is a barrier that we have found to development and also to property sales. We do know for sure that there is a property on West 10th Street that has had multiple deals fall through because it is a rather large parcel. It's surrounded really in kind of a single family feel, if you will, in the neighborhood, a lot of, lower density. Multiple people have come in wanting to build just 1 home, but the requirement is that their density says that there's 6 units that need to be provided. So people have pulled out of that, sales agreement because they were only wanting to build the 1. So this gives them an opportunity to do that, and it gives the property owner the opportunity to sell. So in looking at a redevelopment plan, we currently have a redevelopment plan section in our code. It's referred to as a shadow plat. It's required with all land divisions. It reads a little bit differently right now than what we are looking for with these amendments. And these amendments, we believe, we're simplifying the language. These are the same requirements that you would have to meet when you're putting together a site plan for a site plan review. Then this is, like I said, it's used to demonstrate how proposed development allows for minimum density to be achieved. And this is one of those sections that I had talked about. Although this is touching on density, it is not going to be placed in the density section of the code because this is going to it's going to be referred with all types of development moving forward. So in looking at an example here, I brought this up. This is a parcel. Actually, this is an area over on the west side of town off of Alberta. So you can see here, there is a future right of way of 15th Street, actually, that will eventually be built through here years and years from now. But we are always planning for the future with infrastructure and rights of way. And for an example, just throwing this example out to chat about the redevelopment plan here, and looking at this, the lot itself, I just threw out a number here, 5 dwelling units gross, but once you factor in the right of way, you're probably going to be losing a unit. So I'm saying that there's an estimated 4 dwelling units that would need to be provided. So in looking at the two side-by-side plans of what we're looking for. This is an individual who comes in and they plot out here and they show where that right of way is going to be and they show where lot lines are going to be. And then they decide to place their house right here. This would be an acceptable redevelopment plan. This would give an individual the opportunity to build one home, but they're still planning for the future. Compared to an individual building a dwelling right in the middle of where the right of way would be, therefore restricting 15th Street from going through in the future. So in the findings, putting, with all proposed amendments, they follow legislative procedures similar to our, the many land use applications that come in front of you. And the legislative requirements are a bit different. The Dallas Municipal Code basically says the review criteria for a legislative application is following the comprehensive plan as well as Oregon revised statute. So we will touch on the comp plan and the ORS. So staff found 3 different goals and 6 different policies that these proposed amendments comply with. The first being, goal number 1, citizen involvement. The land use planning process and policy framework shall include opportunity for citizen input as part of the basis for all decisions and actions. This adoption process was duly noticed in the local paper and the city's website, as well as submitted to DLCD 35 days prior to this meeting. Staff provided amendments to multiple developers, homeowners, surveyors that we talked about earlier, and only 1 comment was received. These public meetings give the public the opportunity for citizen involvement, as well as an opportunity to provide testimony on any of these proposed amendments. Therefore, staff finds that this policy has been met. And then looking at policy goal 2, policy 6 and 8, really they're ultimately the same thing. But implementing this plan through appropriate ordinances and action. This process followed the legislative application process outlined in the Dallas Municipal Code and followed proper noticing requirements as well. Staff finds that both of these policies have been met in this process. Goal number 10 in housing, policies 2, 5, and 8. Policy 2, the proposed amendments will modify existing density ranges, as well as ensure minimum densities can be met with the redevelopment plan, establishment of a redevelopment plan. Additionally, staff included language specifically restricting development from exceeding these densities. Staff finds that policy 2 has been met. Policy 5, the proposed amendments aim to achieve efficient use of all residentially zoned land, both vacant and developed land, by requiring, once again, to submit a redevelopment plan. This plan would demonstrate how to develop at a lower density without inhibiting future growth. Staff finds that this policy has been addressed. And then policy 8, the proposed amendments will allow for flexibility in different development scenarios, housing options, by incorporating both the use of gross and net density in calculations. By employing either gross or net into a specific development, it can be advantageous for as we mentioned earlier, to minimize or maximize proposed development of, we have all different types of developers out there. So this gives them that opportunity, and it creates more flexibility. And I've just touched on that. So it's basically giving it more flexibility is what this code it really achieves with this. I think our first time around when we came and we discussed in July, we had a way that we were going to do this, and it was going by using just net density, and we found out rather quickly that that was actually less flexible and created the potential for less density in the community. So by changing it up and really opening the door for any, whatever type of developer you are, this creates that flexibility. And then looking at the Oregon Revised Statute, really the bold is what you're looking at. This is what Oregon land use law really hangs their hat on these days, is making sure that cities have clear and objective standards. If you do not have clear and objective standards, you run the risk of an appeal almost every single time. So what we found with these changes, clarifying the language, that we found, we are establishing clear and objective standards for implementing density. The next steps for this process, last time we met in October, I had a kind of 2 different timelines here. One of them was pretty fast tracked, and to kind of ease up a little bit heading into the holiday season. I did not want to run amok with any timelines being missed and people being out of town. I'm going to be out of town myself. So we pushed this to January 24th, when we will be presenting this to City Council for the adoption. There's a couple timelines up here that we have to meet as staff. And in doing so, that would also allow for Wasco County Planning. I provided this to Wasco County Planning Department. Gives them an opportunity to also, provide any additional comments that they have with this. We have a joint management agreement with the county, and that's what allows the city of the Dalles to oversee everything in the urban growth boundary. So essentially any change that's happening to the urban growth boundary also needs to have, some review by Wasco County Planning. So this gives them ample opportunity. I believe they were going to try to get it to their Board of Commissioners, or at least discuss it with their Board of Commissioners December or first part of January. So this kind of pads some time a little bit. And still, I think it lines us up with that, February 24th, when these go into effect. As I mentioned at the last meeting, even with the short staff that we've had, I'm proud of this timeline that we've had. Really, it's 1 year from the time we had the appeal that really brought this to our attention, and noticed that this was this was something that we needed to address. And then with that, we look at council alternatives. Staff's recommendation is moved to recommend to City Council the approval of zoning ordinance 107-22 and comprehensive plan amendment 54-22, adopting the amendments and findings attached herein. There's 2 other options here. One would be declining the adoption, and the other would be any changes that are needed at the end that we could make. and going from there. And after that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I had a question about rounding up. Usually you round up something, it'd be, from 1 to 50, to round down, and 51 to whatever the next number is to round upwards. I wonder why you went 1 decibel or 1 unit the other way. I think you brought it up to what was it, to 49 to round downward instead of 50. I mean, it wouldn't make much difference. It's just not really a standard way of doing it.
I mean, I think most typical rounding that I've seen, typically it's at 0.5, you would go up. In this case, it is 0.5 going up, but that can always be something adjusted to 0.51.
Yeah.
I guess I would take the temperature with the rest of the commission if that's a change that we want to make.
And it's not really a big deal since it's not a running total like it would be if you're, adding up figures or something. You'd drift offward, but it just wasn't really a standard way of doing it, which is the only reason I mentioned it.
Yeah, and I think there's possibly another way, maybe other ways that it's been looked at. We pulled this language from the city of Milwaukee's zoning code, so I do know that they are using point
It's their bad
0.50.
math.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but yeah, we're more than happy to take a look. I mean, change anything if
Oh, for something like this, it probably wouldn't make that much difference. As I said, it's not a running total, so it's not, you don't have to worry about it drifting off or anything.
Okay, keep it as it is.
Questions or anything? I don't have any questions in regards to the staff report either. Commissioner Grant, do you have any questions or anything for Josh?
I do not.
Okay. This public hearing aspect, I guess in this case, the applicant would be the city.
Yeah, so that language in there is probably a little more catered toward a typical administrative or quasi judicial application. So
Mhm.
some of it in there talking about the applicant, yeah, that would be us.
Okay. Well, does the applicant wish to present information about the proposal?
I think it just did.
Okay. Does anyone wish to testify in favor of the application? And there's no one here. Does anyone wish to testify in opposition to the application? There's no one here. And does anyone wish to testify they're not in favor of the opposition, are not in favor or opposition, or that would like to ask any questions? And they're not. It's just so odd to have no one here. Do the commissioners feel they have enough information to make a decision?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yes.
Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Do the commissioners have any, we've talked about this a lot. Do the commissioners have anything additional to say or discuss, anything like that?
No, I'm ready to vote on it.
Okay. Commissioner Grant, any?
No, I'm ready to vote on as well.
Okay, excellent. In that case, the staff recommendations, well, they were up on the screen, but they're on page 7 of your packet. And if anyone would care to make a recommendation, and if we could have a second, we will continue moving on.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and recommend to the city council the approval of zoning ordinance amendment 107-22 and the comprehensive plan amendment 54-22, adopting amendments and findings attached herein as presented. May I please have a second to recommend that to the city council?
I'll second.
Okay, that has been a motion to approve and a second. For voting, all in favor of moving to recommend to the city council the approval of zoning ordinance amendment 107-22 and comprehensive plan amendment 54-22, adopting amendments and findings attached herein and as presented, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 All not in favor, nay? No one not in favor? Okay, excellent. So now to include all that, we go to item 7, which is resolution PC 610-22, approval of CPA 54-22 and ZOA 107-22. We will be voting on this resolution. Do we need to have a motion to vote, or do we just vote?
Yeah.
Okay, I move to approve resolution number PC 610-22.
I'll second.
Excellent. All in favor of approving resolution number PC 610-22, raise your right hand, and say aye.
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 All not in favor, say nay. Okay, excellent. On to the city council it goes.
Good work, guys.
Wonderful. Yes. Speedy, zippy. Now that we do have a little more time, as opposed to last meeting, would you care to give us any staff comments or project updates before this lovely holiday that's upon us?
Yeah, I'll be quick. We recently hired a planning technician for our office, Brad Mead, a local guy. He's actually been working for Clark Public Utilities out in Vancouver, commuting quite often. So it's exciting. You know, he's here. He's working for the city that he lives in. And he doesn't have a background in land use, but he's already a quick study. Great computer skills, great mapping skills for me. With a background in mapping and GIS, I'm a bit excited about that. So yeah, we're excited for that. Our department, as we've mentioned over the past few months, has expanded, has restructured. So right now we are currently hiring for a senior planner, an economic development officer, and a facilities supervisor. So those positions, tell your friends if they're interested, feel free to apply, city's website. And just want to touch on the next, maybe coming up, some meetings. Since we are entering into the holidays, I do know that December 1st will be our next meeting. We do have an application. It's a conditional use permit application. So we will have one application. December 15th, we don't have anything at this time. Neither the first meeting in January, I believe it's January 6th. January 5th is the first meeting. I am hoping to cancel both December 15th and January 5th, just with the holiday season upon us. As I mentioned earlier, different deadlines and things like that. If we do have an application in, though, we will need to bring it in front of you. But my goal is to try to have those two meetings on the front side and the back side of the holidays, try to cancel those. So, and then, we schedule meetings for next time we have an application in front of us. So other than that, I think that's about it for me. And we'll get going for the evening.
Okay. Any commissioner comments or thoughts? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.